My name is Daniel Mercer, and there was a time when I believed I understood the quiet language of my own life. I'm 47, old enough to think I've seen every kind of betrayal a man can face, yet still stupid enough to be surprised when the knife comes from the person closest to me. The night everything began, I sat alone in my car in the parking lot behind our apartment building, watching the glow of the living room lamp through the thin curtains on the third floor. It was after 11 p.m., the kind of hour when the city feels like it's holding its breath. I'd finished a long shift at the firm. My head was aching from contracts and deadlines, my neck stiff from leaning over the desk for too many hours. All I wanted was the comfort of home, her voice, her smile, the warmth that for years had been waiting for me. But that night, something felt off. You know those moments when your body knows something before your mind does. That quiet, sick twist in your gut, the one you can't explain but can't ignore. I sat there with the engine off, my hands still on the steering wheel, and for a good 2 minutes, I couldn't force myself to get out. I just stared at the window, at the silhouette moving behind the curtains. It wasn't her silhouette. It was broader, taller, a man's outline, unmistakable, even in blurred shadows. My first instinct was denial. I convinced myself it must be a trick of the light, a neighbor passing by, maybe a reflection, anything but the obvious. I blinked, leaned forward, squinted until my eyes burned. The shape moved again, slow, deliberate, and then it faded out of view. I should have gotten out of the car right then. I should have stormed upstairs and ended the nightmare before it truly began. But I didn't. I stayed frozen, fingers trembling around the steering wheel, breath shallow. Suddenly, age didn't matter. Experience didn't matter. I felt like a terrified teenager again, afraid of confirming what I already suspected. When I finally stepped out, the night air felt colder than it should have. I climbed the stairs slowly, too slowly. Every step carried the weight of a truth I wasn't ready to face. By the time I reached our door, my heart was hammering so loud I thought she'd hear it through the wood. But when I walked inside, everything looked painfully normal. The lamp was on. The kitchen was clean. Her shoes were by the door. And she was sitting on the couch, phone in hand, wearing that soft gray sweater I bought her last winter. She looked up and smiled, a small, warm, practiced smile. "Hey, you're back late." Maybe it was the calmness in her voice, or the way she didn't even flinch when I entered. Maybe it was the emptiness of the room, no jacket thrown over a chair, no extra pair of shoes, no coffee mug that wasn't ours. All that combined into a kind of psychological whiplash. My brain couldn't catch up. "Yeah," I said, hanging my coat. "Long day." She nodded sympathetically, like she cared, like she wasn't hiding anything. "Want tea?" "Sure." We moved through the motions, her boiling water, me loosening my tie, both of us pretending nothing strange was happening. But my eyes kept drifting to the window, to the place where I'd seen the silhouette. And then I noticed something. The curtains were back in place, but not the way she normally left them. She always folded the right one slightly inward, so the edge wouldn't touch the heater. But tonight, both panels hung stiff and straight, as though someone unfamiliar had pulled them shut. Someone who didn't know her habits. Someone who'd needed to hide. My throat tightened. "Everything okay?" she asked without looking at me. "Yeah," I lied. "Just tired." She brought me the tea and then kissed my cheek, gently, perfunctorily, as if checking off a box on a list she didn't care about anymore. I watched her walk back to her phone. The screen lit her face in a cold blue glow. She typed something quickly, thumb moving with urgency. Then she turned the phone face down, a subtle act, innocent to anyone else, but not to a man who has spent 17 years studying every micro-expression, every shift in tone, every flicker in the eyes of the woman he loves. Something was wrong. Something was very wrong. I sat across from her, pretending to drink the tea, pretending to scroll my phone, pretending to breathe normally. But the room felt tighter by the second. The silence grew heavier, like a rope slowly looping around my throat. She wasn't just distracted. She wasn't just tired. She was waiting for a message, for a call, for confirmation that the man had left safely and seen. My palms grew damp. I thought about asking. I thought about confronting her. But the words stayed trapped in my throat, suffocating me. Because once I asked, once the question left my lips, my life would never return to what it had been an hour earlier. So instead I said the coward's line. I'm going to take a shower. She nodded, not even glancing up. I walked down the hall, my steps heavy, my reflection distorted in the darkened window. And then, when I reached the bathroom, I didn't turn on the light, didn't close the door. Instead, I leaned silently against the wall and listened. Her voice, soft, trembling, barely above a whisper. Yeah, he's home now. I don't think he knows. My heart crashed against my ribs. I squeezed my eyes shut, but I could still hear every word, sharp as broken glass. No, not tonight. It's too risky. I'll see you tomorrow. Yes, I miss you too. Then the soft click of her phone locking, a moment of silence, and my whole world cracking open at the center. When I finally exhaled, it wasn't pain I felt. It was something colder, something still, something that scared me more than the betrayal itself. Because in that moment, I realized I wasn't breaking, I was changing, and whatever part of me she'd destroyed wasn't coming back. I didn't sleep that night. I lay beside her, staring at the ceiling while she breathed steadily, peacefully, like someone who believed she was safe. I could feel the warmth of her body near mine, the same body I'd held for years, the same body that now recoiled from my touch when she thought I wasn't paying attention. Every few minutes she shifted slightly, not toward me, never toward me, but away, toward the edge of the bed. It used to hurt, that distance, but tonight it felt like evidence, proof of something I'd been blind to. Around 3 in the morning, she murmured something in her sleep, too quiet for me to understand. But the tone, the softness, it wasn't meant for me. I recognized that voice. I'd heard her use it on the phone, in the kitchen, a few hours earlier. It was the voice she used when she thought she'd found something better. By sunrise, a kind of numb clarity had settled inside me, cold, heavy, almost comforting. Pain demands an explanation, but numbness gives you space to think, and I had a lot to think about. When she woke up, she acted normal, too normal. She stretched, yawned, kissed my cheek with that same distant touch, and asked if I wanted coffee, as if nothing in her world had shifted, as if she hadn't whispered to someone else that she missed him just hours earlier. Sure, I said, pretending to smile, while she busied herself in the kitchen. I sat on the edge of the bed, elbows on my knees, staring at the floor with a stillness that didn't feel like me. Something inside my chest felt rearranged, quiet, calculated. She placed the mug on the nightstand beside me. You okay? She asked. Just tired. She nodded, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear, a gesture she'd always done when she felt guilty or cornered. I used to find it endearing. Now it looked like a tell. What time will you be back tonight? She asked casually, without meeting my eyes. An innocent question, on the surface. But it carried weight. Timing mattered when you were hiding someone. Schedules mattered. Alibis mattered. I'm not sure, I said. Should I make dinner? Maybe. She smiled tightly, like she didn't care either way. Then she grabbed her bag and keys. Love you, she said at the door. It sounded forced, like a line she didn't want to say but felt obligated to. You too. And then she left. The moment the door clicked shut, I exhaled the breath I'd been holding since last night. The apartment felt different without her, lighter, quieter, like it was finally telling me the truth. I stood still for a long moment before I walked to the living room and pulled the curtains aside. The parking lot below was empty except for a silver sedan I didn't recognize. I couldn't be sure it was his, but something told me it was. I stepped back and scanned the room more carefully. Small inconsistencies began to appear, like scratches on a polished surface only visible under the right light. A coaster displaced, a second glass washed and drying beside the sink. A faint scent of cologne that wasn't mine. I had been living with a stranger. Or maybe I had become the stranger. My phone buzzed. A message from her. Made it to work. Hope your day gets easier. I stared at the heart emoji. My thumb hovered over the screen, tempted to smash into a reply that would shatter her comfort. Instead, I typed you too. Let her believe she was winning. Let her feel safe. Let her fall deeper into the arrogance of thinking she could outsmart me. Because the moment she thought she was untouchable, that's when the truth would cut the deepest. Around noon, I drove to her office building, a tall glass structure downtown with a lobby full of polished floors and lives more put together than mine. I sat in the car across the street, staring up at the windows of the 11th floor where she worked. People moved behind the glass, silhouettes, busy shapes, moments captured against the sky. One of them was hers. I recognized the way she walked, the slight tilt of her head when she was speaking to someone. But what caught my attention wasn't her. It was him. A tall man with a confident stride. Dark hair, broad shoulders. Standing too close. Leaning in. Laughing at something she said. The same outline I'd seen in the apartment window. My hands tightened around the steering wheel until the leather creaked. I studied the man, his posture, his smile, the ease with which he moved around her. He wasn't just someone passing through her life. He was comfortable. Too comfortable. I watched longer than I should have, until my stomach churned with a cold cocktail of humiliation and rage. I forced myself to breathe slowly, evenly, until the emotions turned into something quieter, steadier. I wasn't going to confront him. Not yet. I wanted information first. I got out of the car, walked into the adjacent cafe, and took a seat by the window. From there, I had a direct view of the entrance to her building. At 1:14 p.m., she walked out. At 1:15 p.m., he followed. They didn't touch. They didn't stand too close. They didn't even look at each other directly. But there was a synchronized shift in their pace, like two instruments tuned to the same frequency. They crossed the street in opposite directions, as if choreographed. To the untrained eye, they were strangers. To a husband who had listened to her whisper someone else's name at midnight. It was obvious. They were hiding, and they were good at it, but not good enough. I waited until he disappeared down the block before I followed her from a safe distance. She walked into a bookstore, bought a coffee inside, browsed a few aisles, and then sat at a small table near the back. At first, I thought she was alone. Then I saw her pull out her phone. Her face softened. Her lips parted in a small smile she hadn't shown me in months. 3 seconds later, her screen lit up with an incoming message. I didn't need to see the name to know who it was. A sickening calm washed over me. She wasn't just betraying me. She was happy doing it, for the first time. I felt something inside me shift, not from pain, not from anger, but from clarity. A brutal kind of clarity. This wasn't a mistake she'd made. This was a choice she repeated every day. On the walk back to my car, I didn't feel jealousy, or sadness, or heartbreak. What I felt was purpose. Something in me had awakened, and it wasn't going back to sleep. By the time evening settled over the city, something inside me had clicked into place, a quiet, controlled version of myself I didn't know I was capable of becoming. The kind of man who watches everything, misses nothing, and reacts only when the moment is perfect. I went home earlier than usual. I wanted to see how she behaved when she wasn't expecting me. When I entered the apartment, the first thing I noticed was her voice, like cheerful, too cheerful. The kind of voice a person uses when they're trying to erase guilt before it dries. She stood in the kitchen, stirring something on the stove. A pot of soup. She never cooked on Tuesdays. Tuesday was her "I'm too tired, let's order in" day. She turned when she heard me. "You're home early," she said, eyes flickering, a microsecond of panic before she hid it under a smile. "Everything okay?" "Yeah," I said, loosening my tie. "Just decided to skip the gym." "Oh," she forced a laugh. "Well, lucky timing. Dinner's almost ready." "Lucky, right?" I walked over, pretending to inhale the smell. "Smells good." I watched her hands tremble, so subtly she probably didn't realize it herself. I wondered who she was afraid would appear behind me. Him. Or the version of me she knew she was creating with every lie. How was work? I asked her. She froze for half a second, a break in the rhythm of her movements, then resumed stirring, busy, stressful. That? Usual. She didn't know I'd watched her take a leisurely lunch with her phone hidden under a book, like a teenager sneaking messages. I stepped closer, just enough to feel her body stiffen without touching her. Anything interesting? I pushed. She swallowed. No, just meetings. Sure. I leaned against the counter, arms crossed. Saw your office today. Her head snapped up. What? I drove past. Thought I might grab lunch nearby. A thin line of fear appeared in her eyes, fear she was fighting to hide. Double quote. So, you should have texted me, she said too quickly. We could have eaten together. We can next time. She forced another smile. Yeah, that would be nice. But we both knew she was lying. Her body said it. Her voice said it. The tension in her shoulders said it. I could almost hear her thinking, wondering whether I saw her with him, whether I caught something she couldn't explain away. I didn't press further. Not yet. Dinner passed in silence. She talked a little about work, a fake story about deadlines and clients. I'd heard her invent better lies in the past. I nodded, played along, let her believe she was convincing. After we ate, she said she had emails to send and retreated to the bedroom. I stayed in the living room, pretending to watch the muted TV while listening closely. 10 minutes later, her voice broke the silence. Soft, whispered. She didn't know I was standing on the other side of the door listening. No, he came home early. I don't know why. No, he didn't say anything. Yes, I think we're okay. Tomorrow, same time. A pause. Then her voice softened into something that clawed at my ribs. I miss you too. I closed my eyes. Not from pain, from something colder. She hung up. A moment later, she walked out of the bedroom pretending nothing happened. Hey, she said casually. I'm going to take a shower. Go ahead. She disappeared down the hallway, water starting a few seconds later. The sound echoed through the apartment like static. I stood completely still, staring at the bedroom door she'd just walked out of. At the phone she left charging on the nightstand. The phone she thought I'd never dare touch. I wasn't the man she thought I was anymore. I entered the room. I didn't go for the phone right away. Instead, I scanned the space, details people overlook when they feel safe. A small bag under the bed, half packed. A subtle sign of preparation. Escape, maybe. A backup plan. Then I picked up her phone. Locked, of course, but the universe has a dark sense of humor. I'd watched her unlock it 100 times. And she was a creature of habit. I tried her birthday first. Nothing. Then mine. The screen opened. Of course it did. The first thing I saw was his name. A message preview glowing with the casual cruelty of secrecy. Tell him you're staying late tomorrow. I'll book the room. My grip tightened until my knuckles went white. I opened the chat. Their thread was long. Longer than my heart could register in one pulse. Messages full of laughter. Complaints about me, plans, secrets, pictures, risky rendezvous. Jokes about how clueless I was, about how comfortable our apartment was. And then one message that nearly broke through the numbness. He won't suspect anything. He still trusts me. I set the phone down slowly, not slamming it, not smashing it. Just placing it back exactly where she left it. Because I wanted her to walk out of that shower believing everything was still under her control. A man who reacts is predictable. A man who waits is dangerous. I stepped out of the room before the water stopped, sat on the couch, and stared at the blank TV screen. When she reappeared, wrapped in a towel, hair dripping, she paused when she saw my expression, neutral, empty. You okay? She asked. Yeah. She hesitated, then walked past me, pretending not to read my silence like a threat. Later, when we got into bed, she whispered good night and turned away, as if she feared facing me in the dark. I lay there, eyes open, listening to her breathing slow, I waited until I was sure she was asleep. Then I whispered into the darkness, not for her to hear, but for myself. You think I'm not suspicious? A pause, but you should be. Because the quiet man she betrayed was gone. What replaced him? Was someone she'd never met. Marko didn't sleep that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Mia's trembling hands, her tear-shiny eyes, the way her voice broke when she whispered that someone had been watching her for weeks. And the envelope, damn that envelope. No sender, no markings, just her picture from behind the curtains. By morning, he felt like his skull was full of static. He found Mia sitting on the kitchen floor, her back against the cabinets, knees pulled to her chest. She wasn't crying, but she had the hollow, unfocused stare of someone who had run out of emotions hours ago. Hey, Marko whispered softly. Her eyes lifted as if it took strength. You didn't sleep either, did you? He shook his head and pulled her into his arms. For a moment she melted against him, warm, familiar, safe. Then she gently pulled back and breathed out, "We can't tell Alex." The words hit him like freezing water. Why not? Because he'll overreact. He always does. And he'll think it's your fault for staying at my place so late. I don't want him starting a fight with you. Marko clenched his jaw. So that's what this was about. Mia, this isn't some stupid jealousy thing. Someone is watching you. That's not normal. That's not safe. She looked away. I know. But Alex doesn't trust you already. If I tell him you're the one who found the picture, he'll twist everything. Marko forced himself to breathe slowly. So what? You want to keep pretending everything is fine. You want to wait until whoever is stalking you decides to get closer. She flinched. He regretted the harshness instantly, but he didn't take it back. Silence pressed between them. Finally Mia whispered, I just don't want to lose you too. His chest tightened painfully at the two. Hey, he put his hand on her cheek. You're not losing me. I'm not going anywhere. But deep inside, he knew things were spiraling. Mia was scared. Alex was suspicious. And Marko was starting to feel a cold, heavy anger at the thought of someone photographing her, someone close enough to breathe her air, close enough to reach through a window. He stood up. I'm checking the building. Whoever left that envelope had to get inside. Mia jumped to her feet. No. Marko, please, if he sees you, I don't care. He pressed his palm to the door handle. Then he froze, because on the other side of the door, a faint sound of retreating footsteps. Slow and hurried, as if whoever was there knew he wouldn't open the door fast enough. Marko swung the door open. The hallway was empty, but a chill shot down his spine. Not empty. Not really. Someone had been standing right there, listening, waiting. Mia's breath trembled behind him, and Marko realized something with ice-cold certainty. This wasn't random. This wasn't a stranger. Someone close to them was playing a game, and the rules were only just beginning. For the rest of the day, Marko couldn't shake the feeling of those footsteps behind Mia's door, slow, confident, almost taunting. Whoever it was didn't care if he heard them, didn't care if Mia knew. They wanted to be noticed. By evening, the tension in the apartment felt like it had weight. Mia stayed close to him, jumping at the smallest sounds. Marko kept checking the windows, the hall, the stairwell. Every shadow looked too sharp. Every silence felt intentional. When the doorbell rang at 20:14 exactly, Mia froze like a hunted animal. Marko didn't even breathe. A second ring, slow, deliberate. Mia whispered, "Don't open it." But Marko stepped forward, pulse hammering. He pressed his eye to the peephole and the world dropped out under him. It was Alex, standing perfectly still. No expression. Hands in his pockets. Not knocking. Not calling Mia's name. Just standing. Marko opened the door a crack. "What are you doing here?" he asked, voice low. Alex tilted his head, studying him with unnerving calm. "I should be asking you that," Alex said. "You've been here a lot lately." Mia appeared behind Marko, breath tight. "Alex, don't start." "I'm not starting anything." Alex's lips curved into something too cold to be a smile. I'm finishing it. Marko felt Mia grip the back of his shirt. What's that supposed to mean? Marko asked. Alex sighed softly, as if disappointed that Marko didn't understand. Mia doesn't tell me things anymore, he said. She lies. She sneaks around. She whispers on the phone. And suddenly, he shrugged. She's scared. Marko's stomach clenched. Alex's gaze sharpened, like a blade turning. Funny thing is, he continued, she only got scared after you started coming around. Mia stepped forward, voice cracking. Alex, stop. You don't understand. No, Mia. Alex's voice dropped to a quiet, chilling certainty. I understand everything. He reached into his jacket. Marko instantly moved in front of Mia, muscles coiled, but Alex didn't pull out a weapon. Pulled out another envelope, identical to the one Mia received. He tossed it to the floor. Found this taped to my door this morning. Marko's heart hammered as he picked it up. Inside was a photo. Mia walking with Marko yesterday, taken from behind a corner, just like hers had been. So tell me, Alex said softly, before I lose my mind. Who's doing this? Mia covered her mouth. That wasn't us. We didn't send anything. Alex turned his stare to Marko. You think I believe that? Marko felt something click into place in his brain, something awful and real. The footsteps outside the door, the timing of the envelopes, the perfect angles, the fact that both of them, Mia and Alex, were being manipulated simultaneously. No one's sending these to break you two up, Marko said quietly. They're sending them to turn you against each other. Alex's jaw tightened. So, who would do that? Marko looked at Mia, mentally replaying every detail, every moment she felt watched, every place she had been. And then he realized, not a stranger, not a random stalker, someone who had access, someone inside her building, someone who knew her schedule, someone who could walk the halls without being noticed. His voice cracked as he whispered, I think it's someone who lives here. Mia's face drained of color. A sudden noise echoed from the dark end of the hallway, a soft creak, like someone shifting their weight on old floorboards. Just out of sight. All three of them turned at the same time. The hallway was empty, but not empty. Someone was there. Watching. Waiting. Just like before. Marko's skin crawled. This wasn't the end. It was the beginning.